few minutes to talk to you about some of the implications and trends in the global online audio sector. But before I begin, I wanted to share with you a story that I read recently, which I found very fascinating. If you ever get a chance to go to South Minneapolis, Minnesota, just outside of town in a nondescript office park, you'll find a company called Orfield Laboratories. Now, Orfield is the brainchild of a gentleman by the name of Stephen Orfield. It is a lab that's used by companies to test the sound levels of their various products. So for example, Harley-Davidson uses it to test its new, quieter motorcycle engines. Now, Orfield is very famous for its anechoic chamber. This is a room that's in the lab that has 3-foot thick walls of concrete and steel around it. This anechoic chamber is considered to be the quietest room in the world. It has a sound level of -9 decibels. It's so quiet that the occupants in the room can actually begin to start hearing their own heartbeat. You can hear your lungs work. You can even hear your intestines move. If you spend a lot of time in the chamber, you'll actually start to feel some imbalance, and you'll have inner ear imbalances. And if you're in the room for more than 30 minutes, you'll actually have to sit down. You won't be able to stand up. I found that very, very fascinating when there's no sound. What I found fascinating about this is the sometimes overlooked importance that sound has in our lives. Music, voices, the cacophony of everyday noises that we hear, this is the soundtrack of our day-to-day lives. And so it's no wonder that in the face of this, audio is taking its rightful place in the digital world. We now see companies and brands ranging from radio stations to startups to Apple and Google, all taking a place in this stage, and they're building services based on this fundamental element of our lives, which is sound. Now, having said that, let me start off by sharing a few slides from Kleiner Perkins's Mary Meeker. As Ms. Meeker pointed out earlier this year, the total amount of digital content that is being shared and created by people throughout the world has gone up by 9 times. This is all of those videos, those Spotify playlists, the status updates, and vacation photos that we're sharing with each other. By 2015, that's projected to be as much as 8 zettabytes, which is 8 trillion gigabytes. To give you a sense for how much that is, that's 64,000 2-hour HD movies being shared every second. It's a lot of sharing. So it's no wonder that digital media are far outpacing the growth that we see in traditional media. Americans are spending 26% of their time on the internet and 12% on mobile, but only 22% and 3% of ad dollars, respectively, are being spent on those media. This represents the biggest untapped opportunity in the US, one worth more than $20 billion and growing. Now, why is this happening? Well, part of that growth is due to the cannibalization of content that's taking place, coming from traditional media. Print, radio, and TV are all giving up share to internet and mobile platforms, whether it be in the form of text or photos, video, or audio. So this migration path is only in its early stages right now. It started with photos. Flickr and Instagram are in. Kodak and Polaroid are out. But now the focus is on video. YouTube, Vimeo, even short-form videos like Vine. But the next natural migration path is sound. Spotify, Pandora, SoundCloud, Deezer, Slacker. These are all some of the different companies that are helping to shape the next stage of the migration of sound in the digital world. So there's a number of different technologies that are driving this, and we see this happening from the technical labs around the world. Whether it's high-quality compact wireless speakers, Bluetooth-enabled devices, noise cancellation technology, connected audio, connected cars, all of these are enabling a new world of online-enabled audio around us. And having said that, and I think as a good follow-on to the Spotify presentation, we see that online music is becoming more and more adopted around the world. It's no wonder that the consumption of streaming music is now quickly becoming a global phenomenon. Whether it's desktop or tablet or mobile, or soon wearable devices or the connected car, the consumption of music via streaming is becoming a worldwide accepted standard, whether it's in India or China, the US or UK. And one of the drivers of that has been the the fast adoption of smartphones around the world. As users reach for their phones about 150 times per day, about 10% of the time, it's something to do with music that they're reaching for that phone. And therefore, it's no surprise that the second biggest publisher of mobile advertising in the world is Pandora, the leading internet radio company in the US. This is simply because audio simply has a better advantage over display ads on that small screen on your mobile phone. It's the advantage of the echoic memory of audio over the iconic memory of a display ad. And at the same time, within this context, we see that the acceptance of online radio around the world is growing tremendously. In the US, it's projected by 2015 about 186 million people, that's 64% of the population, 12 plus, will be listening to online radio on a regular monthly basis. This is the same here in Turkey as well, where about half of the entire listening of radio is taking place on internet and internet-enabled devices. What's more interesting is not only that people are augmenting their normal media behaviors with this online world, but in some cases they're actually replacing those behaviors. In the US, 18% of all weekly radio listeners that were surveyed said they listen exclusively to online radio. They don't listen to AM/FM at all, and many of them, especially the younger generations, don't even know what a radio is. They may not have even seen one. And one of the drivers of this is the acceptance of legal music services around the world. Long gone are those days of illegal peer-to-peer downloading services being the only ways of getting your hands on digital music. Today's services, whether it's YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, Vivo, Pandora, they're all fully legal, they're owned by major companies, and they all benefit from branding and marketing and the ecosystems that are helping drive their awareness and their acceptance. You see this in iTunes. iTunes recently launched iTunes Radio. They're trying to take advantage of that same ecosystem to drive their listening rates. And as soon as you have increased awareness, you also have increased adoption. So naturally, we see around the world that the highest adopters of legal music services are the youth, 16 to 24-year-olds. Furthermore, what's more interesting is in this space, which has been dominated for the past 100 years or so by old-fashioned radio companies, it's great to see that radio stations and radio groups are taking a clicks and mortar, or an online and FM, if you will, approach to this as well. So in the US, which streaming service do you listen to most typically in a month? Amongst the top 3 most popular answers are services that are owned by FM radio station groups. So where is this all heading? Where we see the real battleground for this service, for online audio, is the connected car. This is where ground zero of the online audio sector is predicted to be in the next few years. In the next 2 years, they're forecasting that Pandora's connected car and appliance listening is actually going to surpass desktop listening. Furthermore, in the past year or so, the 3 big automakers in the US, Chrysler, Ford, and GM, have all announced that they're going to stop investing in R&D for FM radio in their cars, but are going to focus that more on in-car apps and connected applications. So 2 minutes on our company and what we do. We are, as was introduced, we are the largest FM radio broadcaster in Turkey, Spectrum Media. But at the same time, we are also the operator of the largest online digital radio platform in the country called Carnival.com. Carnival has, in the past year and a half of its evolution, become the 8th largest radio streaming service in the world. We operate about 21 million hours of streaming to 6.5 million unique users monthly. And just this past month, we were selected by Wired UK as one of the 100 hottest startups in Europe and the #1 hottest startup in Istanbul. We think that's fantastic that a radio station group can help be in the same sphere as all these other great, wonderful startups. And at the same time, I think it's a great testament to what is going to be the next big thing, which is audio. Thank you.